Hi, it's Sandy Wyllie. Welcome to my mental health channel, where I wipe away the stigma of mental illness by talking about my own personal struggles, having borderline personality disorder. I talk about my struggles having complex post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety and panic attacks, depression. I talk about narcissism and my narcissistic mother who abused me. I talk about schizophrenia and my schizophrenic father. I wrote a book about him, Life with My Schizophrenic Father, and it's down below in the description, the link to the book, which is available on Amazon. I also talk about my unethical therapies with psychologists that sexually abuse me, and I wrote books about that too. And the link is down below in the description where you can get these books on Amazon. And I talk about a plethora of other mental health related topics. But I only come on as a former patient of almost 20 years. I am not a licensed therapist, and I do not hold a degree in psychology, so I cannot diagnose you. All I ask in turn of you is your kindness and respect always in the comments. Please be kind to me. Be kind to other people who comment and respectful. We don't need to agree on everything. Variety is the spice of life. But we do need to show each other respect and kindness always. Now, if you are new to my channel, welcome. Please hit that little box in the lower right-hand corner that says subscribe. That way you'll be notified whenever a new video comes out. It's 100% free, so stick around, take a chance, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends and family on other social media platforms, and please feel free to comment. I really want to know your struggles, what you're going through. I love to hear your, opinions, your thoughts, and I will answer all comments back. Today we're going to talk about complex post-traumatic stress disorder behaviors that push people away. Now, I have complex post-traumatic stress disorders. I've done other videos about this disorder, and I want to talk about some of the behaviors of it that push people away. The number one behavior is neediness. Now, I've always been a very lonely person. Most people who do have complex post-traumatic stress disorder is because I had a traumatic childhood. It's a defense mechanism from growing up in a traumatic household with parents that were abusive. Just like my borderline personality disorder, and most of the disorders are from traumatic childhood abuse, whether it be emotional, physical, sexual, verbal. It's all from that. So the neediness and the loneliness was a huge factor in mine that pushed people away. I'm going to give you an example of that. Is my friend Steve, that I was friends with for a while. I met him through my husband. My husband met him in school, and he was, it was pretty a give and take friendship for the beginning of it. And then he started to pull back emotionally and physically. We saw less and less of him. I kept calling, and he'd always be busy. He'd always have plans, and I guess I didn't, take a hint. That's another thing, not reading people, not judging situations, knowing when to, what is appropriate and what is not appropriate. And I'm not talking about people who have autism, because that's another category in itself. But I'd always call him, and he lived with his dad at the time this happened, and he'd always, be busy or doing something. So I asked his dad, where is he? And his dad said, well, he's at a Chinese restaurant. And I go, oh, where is that? So I'm sure Steve didn't want us to know where it was. And the father told me the name of the restaurant, where it was. So we drove there, and Steve had no idea we were going to meet him there, because I didn't call him and tell him that we were going to meet him. We just showed up at the restaurant where he was eating lunch. And it was obvious he did not want to see us there. You know, he was eating his lunch, and he said hi. And then I sat down at the table, and I had my baby. Austin was only like 1.5 years old at the time, very well behaved. And, you know, he was almost done with his lunch, and I didn't order anything to eat. And I was trying to have a conversation with him, and you could tell he just kind of like zoned out. He really didn't, he was trying to be polite. You know how you want to get away from someone, but you feel trapped? I did not read the situation right. I was, I was not admitting to myself that he no longer wanted to be friends. He no longer returned my phone calls. We hardly ever saw each other. I had to find out from his dad where he was. And then without his knowledge or consent, I went to that restaurant and kind of invaded, his turf or his boundaries. So that was a big, neediness. People don't like needy people. And this was one of the big mistakes that I made. I did not recognize when the relationship was over. There are telltale signs. Not everyone comes out and because they don't want to hurt people. Not everyone comes out and says, I don't want to be your friend anymore. They just slowly withdraw over time. And this happened again with another friendship, my best friend Holly. Over time, she would slowly withdraw. I would try to make plans with her. She'd make plans, and then she'd cancel the plans. And then I'd call her again and make plans, and she'd cancel the plans. And, I wasn't picking up. I didn't want to, there was no, it wasn't equal. There was no reciprocity. It wasn't reciprocal. It was no longer reciprocal, okay? That means both ways. It was me doing all the legwork. It was me always doing contacting, making the plans, the phone calls, trying to initiate getting together, and the other person pulling away. And it's that neediness that drives people even further away, It takes two people, to make a relationship. One person can't put in all the effort. And if you're if you're constantly going after, making all the calls, making all the plans, trying to get together with a person, then that's never going to work. It didn't work for me in these friendships, and it's not going to work for you. Don't keep pushing invitations on someone, okay? You can find other people that want your company. So that's a number one thing, a number one behavior that pushes people away. Another behavior is being overly negative, all right? So that would be number 2. And number 3 is overly positive. So overly negative people complain. I know I've done my fair share of complaining in friendships, and that comes from not having someone to lean on. This was probably before I went to therapists. That's why I stayed so long in therapy, because therapists are paid to listen to you. That's their job. Your friends aren't paid to listen to you. If your friends listen to you, that means they genuinely care and like you. But none of my friends would listen to me, okay? It was always me listening to them. That's why I ended up in therapy for almost 20 years and staying in abusive relationships with therapists who sexually abused me, is because, my friends wouldn't listen to me. I mean, who wants to listen to someone's problems unless you're getting like these therapists today get $200 or $300 an hour, or 50 minutes. Not even an hour, 50 minutes to listen, okay? Your friends, on the other hand, don't have to listen to you. They're not getting money. So if they are listening to you, that means they genuinely care about you and like you. Unfortunately for me, I never found that in anyone except my husband. And therapists, who, of course, that's their job. So, I guess I would complain, and people don't want to hear your problems. They don't want to, They don't want to hear it. They really don't. And the opposite, being overly positive, toxic positivity, comes across as phony and fake, you know. I mean, you can spot it a mile away. It's sugary, it's sappy. I never was this way, but I known people who were this way, and who, of course, had complex post-traumatic stress disorder. And I guess they were trying to, you know, they were fawning. It's called fawning, people pleasing, trying to have someone like you so much that, you know, you're always complimenting them, even at inappropriate times. Like if your friend comes over and you just got out of bed and your hair's all disheveled and, you know, you got bags under your eyes and you're going to make the coffee like a zombie, and your friend says, "Oh, you look beautiful this morning." You know, obviously, you know that they're full of shit, you know. I mean, I've known people like that they're full of shit. And that it's obvious I don't look beautiful. I just got out of bed, you know. I got bags under my eyes. I got bedhead. But it just comes across as phony. And the fawning, the over-pleasing, the always apologizing even when you didn't do anything wrong, the excessive complimenting someone, that is a behavior, you know, that's one of the behaviors that will push people away. And it's also a trauma response. All of these behaviors are trauma responses. They're from our childhood, where we had to learn to adapt, you know, to our upbringing. And another one is overly critical, always correcting people. And a good example of this is my old friend Lori, who was a school teacher. And I think I mentioned this in another video. You know, my son said a word, he did not pronounce the word appropriately. And she told him, "No, you're supposed to say it this way." And she had him say it to her back, and he still didn't say it right. And then she kept trying to tell him over and over again how to say it. And it was like he was in a lesson with her. He wasn't one of her pupils. It's inappropriate to correct someone, okay? It was probably up to me, the parent, to maybe say that, not my friend. She had no place in doing that. So if you are overly critical and you say, "Well, I'm just being honest, you know, I'm just trying to help," you're not helping, you're not being honest. What you're doing is, you know, trying to be critical, coming across as someone who thinks they're superior, that has to teach someone a lesson. Like, you're not the person's teacher, okay? That's not my son wasn't her student. It wasn't up to her to correct my son if he's saying a word, if he's mispronouncing a word. That's not up to her. So always trying to, you know, prove someone wrong, always trying to be right, proving your case, giving your advice when it's not asked, all those type of things, in the name of, "Oh, but I'm only being honest." Don't ever give anything unless it's asked for. If someone doesn't ask for your advice, don't give it, okay? And here's another thing. I always talk about being respectful and kind. If someone asks for your advice, there's a way to give it that is kind and respectful. If someone asks me, who is, like, say, really obese, if someone asks me, "Do you think I'm fat?" Now, they're asking my opinion. I would never say anything. I would never say anything about their weight. But if they ask my opinion, then what do you expect? You ask for it. But there's a way to say it. I could say, "Oh my God, you're grossly obese." That would be inappropriate, cruel, and vicious, even though they asked. The right thing to say that would be kinder, that wouldn't be like overly positive, like, "Oh, of course not. You look great. You look awesome." Now, if the person is like 60, 70 pounds overweight, they're going to know that you're lying. That's toxic positivity. They ask, do you think I'm overweight? And you go, no, you look fabulous. And the other side of that, too negative, would be, you're grossly obese, man. I can't believe you haven't had a heart attack yet. The appropriate way to be, instead of overly negative or overly positive, would be, yes, you could lose to stand some weight. That's not being overly positive. It's being honest, because they asked. Remember, they asked. And it's not putting it on so much that the person feels horrible and shamed and regretted asking you, all right? Because the person knows. If the person asks, they know, They know they're overweight, or they know whatever they're asking. Like, if I ask you, do you think my nose is too big? What do you think? Yeah. See what I'm saying? All right. So we got the negative, the too positive, the needy person that doesn't know appropriate boundaries, that keeps pushing for to make connections when the other person is pulling away. Let's see, what else do we have? Always like being hypervigilant, trying to read everything in a person as if it's looking for, like being hypervigilant, looking for bad signs that something, it's going to happen. Like, for instance, here's an example. If you're dating someone and you're so worried that they're going to cheat on you, so you're being hypervigilant. You're looking at their phone every minute, trying to check their phone. You go on their Facebook, you try to check their Facebook, or you check their emails, or you look through their mail, or look through their desk, whatever. You're trying to look for something. If they come home from work and they're not smiling and cheery, maybe they just had a bad day at work, but you take everything personal. Because you grew up in such an environment that you never knew what to expect from your parent or parents like me. So you have to be hypervigilant, have those antennas up, and you're always looking, for signs that the person is going to abandon you. And this is a big, big one for me because I have borderline personality disorder. I'm always looking for signs that someone is going to hurt me, because my dad, one minute he'd be fine, the next minute he'd be psychotic and delusional. My mother, one minute, she's this way, nice when the neighbor comes over or a friend, and as soon as they leave, she turns into like the Wicked Witch of the West, East, North, and South. So, I'd be hypervigilant, and I would be this way in relationships with other people too. So I would, always be looking for signs. I try to read into things much more. I would play detective. Like if they were upset, I'd say, what's wrong? Did I do something wrong? Are you unhappy with me? Maybe they don't want to be friends with me anymore. What did I say? What did I do? Like trying to be detective. Like, why aren't they talking as much today? Why did they not look as happy? Or, picking apart. Overthinking. This is the part where you're overthinking. You're up all night thinking about, you go over the conversation that you had with your friend or your lover or whatever, your parent, I don't know who it is, your coworker, and you go over it over and over, and you analyze it like you're a therapist, and you pick it apart and say, that's another major red flag that, this is a sign that this is something that can push people away. All right, another one of the complex post-traumatic disorder behavior that pushes people away is oversharing, especially in the beginning of relationships. You don't want to dump all your baggage onto someone right away. You want to dole it out in small increments. This is what you want to do. Otherwise, you will push people away. They'll go, whoa, whoa, whoa. Too much, too much information, TMI. I've heard that a lot, especially with my ex-friend Holly. When I first met Holly, I first met her at the park. I told you this before, and because we had so much in common, I invited her over and her family, her children and husband, for lunch. And right there, this is the first time she ever was over my house. when we were all at the dining room table eating lunch, she told me, "Oh, my husband's gay." It's like that should never have been said in front of everyone, in front of the children, in front of my son who's underage at the time, in front of, that should have been something she shared much later. Now, an example of a healthy boundary was my other best friend, Linda. My other best friend I knew was divorced, and she had a son named Joseph. Now, I was friends with Linda for over a year before I found out that Joseph's father wasn't the only man she had married. In fact, she was married to another man, her first husband, and they had a child. And I never even knew about this. And we were friends for over a year, good friends. And that child died of childhood cancer. It was also a boy. I forget his name at the time because I'm no longer friends with Linda or Holly. And so, she just didn't dump all that on me in the beginning of the friendship. Where Holly told me, like, threw up everything, and that was too much TMI, too much information right away. So you can, really push people away by doing this. It's just too much too soon. You ever hear of that? It's like getting naked on the first date, Maybe you have done that, and you're going to say, so what's wrong with that? Well, this is just my opinion. I don't think, in my opinion, you shouldn't get naked on the first date. You should wait till you get to know someone, not take your clothes off everyone. Wait till something is there first. You can disagree with me, that's fine. I'm not calling you names now, am I? I'm being respectful and kind and saying I don't believe in getting naked on the first date. Especially if you don't even know the person, you know what I mean? You've barely seen them, or you weren't. If you were friends for a little while and then you went on a first date and did it, you already kind of like knew the person before in another, way. But I'm just talking about like strangers. That's what I'm talking about. So when you spill too much information too fast, you can make the other person feel uncomfortable. It is like getting naked on the first date. That's the only way I can describe it, to me. Anyway, let's see. I want to make sure that I have some notes here because I want to make sure that I brought all these to your attention, and I want to give you concrete examples of these behaviors that were in my life that I noticed in myself and that I noticed in other people. So let me know what you think, and let me know if you have complex post-traumatic disorder. Before, it used to only be post-traumatic stress disorder, but now it's complex, and I did videos about this because it's from other areas in your life that has caused trauma, not just your childhood. All right, I was re-traumatized by being raped by my therapist and sexually exploited by my other therapists, and I've talked all about them in these videos. You can look up that. So I have, traumas not just from my childhood. I have traumas from other areas of my life. That's why it's complex. That's why they say that. All right. Please comment. Please share with me if you are willing to do so. I would really appreciate it. Your thoughts, your opinions, your struggles, what you're going through. If you notice these behaviors in yourself, or if you notice these behaviors in other people too. Let's have an ongoing dialogue about it. Until next time, have a great day.